Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. Now, something I've seen online a lot amongst a lot of fans is how Cad Bane doesn't look really how Cad Bane should look. And what I mean by this is his skin is too pale, he's supposed to be a darker blue, and his face is a little bit too round and fat. And I think I know the reason for this, unless we want to chalk it up to just, turning a cartoon character into live action and there being some discrepancies. However, I think there's something that a lot of us aren't really realizing. So let's get into it. Cad Bane is one of the deadliest bounty hunters in the galaxy. That said, he also might be one of the oldest. Now that Bane has appeared in the Book of Boba Fett, episode 6, I thought we'd take a look at some of the more interesting aspects of the character and compare him to some of the other crime lords, bounty hunters, and smugglers who survived the Galactic Civil War. And when we do that, one of the most interesting factoids about Bane is his age. Because he's survived a long time in one of the deadliest professions in the galaxy, he's definitely going to be looking a little bit different than from what we're used to. Now, that being said, there is a bit of truth about his species that we need to understand. So here we go. How old exactly is Cad Bane? And how old do his species, the Duros, get to? To answer it simply, he was born in the year 62 BBY, before the Battle of Yavin, or in other words, before episode 4. That is decades before the creation of the Empire, the fall of the Jedi Order, and well before Palpatine planned Plageuis' death. Since the events of the Book of Boba Fett take place in the year 9 ABY, then it's easy to do some quick math and figure out Bane was about 71 years old by the time he walked across the Tatooine desert serving the Pike Syndicate. Now, this might just seem like a random factoid about Bane's age, and it certainly is, but when we look at the biology of his species, the Duros, we find that 71 years old is actually extremely old. This is like a 100-year-old human. Unlike Wookiees or Hutts who could live for centuries, the Duros actually had fairly short lifespans. According to the Ultimate Alien Anthology, which is Legends, if a member of the Duros species ever survived past his 69th birthday, he was considered elderly. That means during Cad Bane's golden era, the Clone Wars, he was already middle-aged. So the version of the character that pops up in the Book of Boba Fett might look pretty menacing, but he's actually super old. This is basically Clint Eastwood here, or Lee Van Cleef, if he got to be a really old age, may he rest in peace. And I know we're all looking forward to a classic duel in the dunes of Tatooine. I can't wait to see Bane pull his LL-30 blaster pistol out of his holster and expertly put a few shots into, well, I guess some of the heroes. But instead of the spry bounty hunter who survived death-defying leaps when apprehending the unmodified clone, Omega, on the Bora Vio facility, we're probably going to get a slower, angrier, more skilled old version of Cad Bane. Now, there could be some other things that I'm not mentioning here that we don't know yet. It is Star Wars, so maybe he has some cybernetic upgrades. Maybe he's got some modifications of his own. I'm hoping that Bane will be similar to Clint Eastwood from Unforgiven, an old, washed-up gun-for-hire who still has a few good fights left in him, which, don't get me wrong, I'm equally pumped to see. I just think that because he's so old, if we see a 100-year, imagine what you're gonna look like when you're 100 years old. Hopefully we all make it to that age and beyond. But I would imagine that our skin probably wouldn't look the same anymore. Our face would definitely have changed by this point. If we just look at Cad Bane's most famous Clone Wars adversary, Obi-Wan Kenobi, the wear and tear of age undoubtedly plays a significant role for warriors. By his death, Kenobi's body had deteriorated quite greatly. His joints, from years of combat and trudging through the dune seas, were ground down just as any old man's would be. While this physical pain didn't really affect his abilities in the Force, and he was still quite a tough opponent in a lightsaber duel, Kenobi's best years were behind him. And I can't help but think of Kenobi whenever I see Bane. I wonder what the showrunners have planned. Maybe they'll explain some things. Will he somehow serve a similar purpose in future episodes, as Kenobi did when he brought Luke Skywalker to the Rebellion? After all, he was once Boba Fett's mentor. Something else I'd like to mention is how he talks about Boba Fett being a cold-blooded killer who worked for the Empire. Now, what if this entire time, Boba's just been kind of playing nice so that he can sort of schmooze his way in? What if this is all just a facade? What if at the end of the season finale, we just get Boba completely turning a 180 on everybody and just being the villain, screwing everyone over? I could see it happening. That's kind of who I felt Boba Fett really was, someone who just is a cold-blooded killer and doesn't really care about anybody else but himself. Now, I understand his time with the Tuskens has made him different, but that being said, I love the fact that Cad Cad Bane actually explains the contrast, or at least explains that Boba Fett is the way he is in his mind from his past experiences, and now we're able to see a different side of him. So in that, we're able to contrast both characters or both sides of him and see, yeah, there is a bit of a difference here. Now, if you haven't already, I'm going to put in the top 10 facts about Cad Bane at the end of this video, but it's also a standalone video if you want to check that out for yourself as well. I hope this can kind of explain why Cad Bane looks so different. So the next time we see him, maybe we'll understand that, oh, this guy is actually pretty damn old. Thanks for watching this video. I'll catch you guys in the next one, and for now, enjoy the top 10 facts about Cad Bane. I made this one around the time the Bad Batch came out, so I feel like the info is still pretty up to date. Enjoy. Hey everyone, how are you all doing? With Cad Bane's appearance in the Bad Batch, which was such a sweet surprise, I figured I would do 10 interesting facts about Cad Bane. Now keep in mind, these aren't all of his facts, I'm just picking and choosing from a few that I found on the internet, namely Wikipedia and of course some other novel sources, which you will see in the rest of this video. So I will be doing a part 2 to this video at some other time and then eventually combining them for a top 20 facts about Cad Bane. So if you don't know who he is, this video will give you a bit of a rundown on what he's been up to in the Clone Wars, if you haven't seen the Clone Wars, or if you need a bit of a refresher. So starting in at number 1, we have Cad Bane's early life. Now, his early life is one that I hope to see in a spin-off show of some sorts. By the time of the Clone Wars, he was already in his 50s, so to him, things weren't really all that personal anymore at this more of a mature age. A job was a job, and if it paid, he would get it done. The Duros species bounty hunter was very intelligent. Much like Thrawn, he was always several steps ahead of his bounty. He was second in the galaxy only to Jango Fett, and once Jango died at the hands of Mace Windu on the Battle of Geonosis, Cad Bane was considered the best. His specialty was killing, naturally, like most bounty hunters, but what made him unique like Jango was his ability to kill Jedi where other bounty hunters could not. This was due to his keen intellect and very fast reflexes. Combined with his aggression and ruthless behavior, it left for a bounty hunter that never faltered under pressure. Some notable hires included the Hutts, the Separatists, and Palpatine himself, which we're going to get into all of them. Number 2, his mask. Have you ever wondered about his mask? Why does he wear that thing? Does he have problems breathing like Vader did? Now, while tubes and masks weren't unheard of in a galaxy where so many different species have different biologies, some can't breathe oxygen, Bane's was for a different reason. He knew Jedi and Sith used the ability Force Choke. So, as he fought more and more Force users, he eventually realized this threat was rather overpowered and devised a breathing tube apparatus to go down his throat, which prevented any Force user from Force choking him in the future. Like Anakin, for example, if the seldom few Jedi would use such a power, as it was more deemed to be a dark side ability. It also allowed him to breathe in areas without oxygen, like space. Number 3, he worked with ObiWan. Sort of. If you remember in the Clone Wars, Cad Bane was arrested by the Republic, all according to his plan. He did this in order to rescue an inmate named Moralo Ival, who was working with Dooku. Now their plan was to kidnap Palpatine, so Cad paid little Boba Fett, who was also in the prison, to create a diversion, a distraction, while he and Reiko Hardeen, who was actually Obi-Wan Kenobi in disguise, escaped. Now, Obi-Wan, or Reiko, was also on a secret mission of his own to stop the kidnapping of the Chancellor. Once they got out, Cad Bane, Obi-Wan, the rest of the bounty hunters, and Dooku entered the box, which was just a room in a building filled with a sort of life or death obstacle course, kind of like the Saw movies. Dooku did this to see who would be the best bounty hunter to kill Palpatine, sort of like a test. Well, no, essentially a test. Cad survived, and so did Moralo and Obi-Wan, who everyone still believed was Reiko Hardeen. If it wasn't for Obi-Wan revealing his true identity, Cad Bane's plan might have succeeded. That being said, we all know Palpatine couldn't actually be killed. He was just pretending to be this feeble and weak politician. At this point in time, Cad Bane was sent to prison for life in a Republic jail. Number 4, weapons. A bounty hunter never is without their weapons. Cad Bane's weapons of choice were akimbo LL-30 blasters, dual blasters. Customized with a special scope and a fast rate of fire, he was able to throw off even his most skilled targets. The Jedi with their lightsabers, that is. In addition to dual pistols, he had rockets attached to his heels. Much like the Fetts were equipped with jetpacks, he was partially Iron Man, which allowed him to get out of any situation by flying or leaping away. Out of all of his weapons, the most deadly were his gauntlets, which were kind of like Inspector Gadget. They had a wire cord, much like Jango used against Obi-Wan and Boba Fett used on Luke Skywalker in Return of the Jedi. Flamethrowers, little projectile launchers, much like the Mando has those singing birds, and the ability to shoot electrical currents to shock his enemies. Now, I should also mention that his hat doesn't offer any type of gadget or ability like Oddjob. He did once kill another bounty hunter just for wearing it. So never touch his hat. Note to self. Number 5. Sidious. Cad Bane had many powerful people hiring him for various jobs and deeds. He was that good. One of these people was, of course, Palpatine himself, Darth Sidious, who required Bane to steal a Jedi holocron. Now, this holocron was special. I don't know all of them are, but this one in particular. It was known as the Cyber Memory Crystal. It listed all the known locations of every Force-sensitive child in the entire galaxy. Something surely Palpatine wanted, and so does Cal Kestis, but both for different reasons. The holocron was in the Jedi Temple itself, and if you remember, it was guarded by Bola Ropal, the Rodian Jedi Master. Now, Rodians were the same species as Greedo, if you didn't know. Now, one does not simply just walk into the Jedi Temple and steal a holocron. Unless, of course, you're Cad Bane, who eventually challenged the Jedi Master, guarding it, and defeated him, holding him prisoner. Master Ropal never gave in to Bane's extreme methods of revealing the information, and he eventually met his demise. So without any way of opening this holocron, he improvised when the Republic came to the aid of the Rodian Jedi Master. Anakin and Ahsoka were part of the rescue team. So, naturally, Cad Bane captured Ahsoka and forced Anakin to unlock the holocron for him in exchange for her life. He took out a clone trooper and wore the armor to disguise himself as he escaped freely. Number 6. Mind power. Happy with the job well done, Sidious hired Cad Bane once more now that he knew the location of so many Force-sensitive children, thanks to Anakin opening the holocron. He had Bane kidnap 4 children and to bring them to his facility on Mustafar. Palpatine planned on making dark-side spies, so Cad Bane executed his contract in his typical fashion until the Republic captured him. It took Obi-Wan, Anakin Skywalker, and Mace Windu to perform a Jedi mind trick on him to reveal the location of the children. But to no avail. Bane resisted successfully, and in the end, the Jedi eventually recovered the Cyber Memory Crystal and rescued the children from Mustafar. However, Cad Bane tricked them long enough to escape once again. Number 7. Cad vs. Boba Fett. Before the Clone Wars got cancelled, there was an entire planned arc with Boba Fett who had a standoff with Cad Bane. Now that we see Cad in the Bad Batch, it's very, very possible that we could see this conclusion, either in the Bad Batch or even better, maybe in live action in the Book of Boba, depending how they want to do it. Or perhaps we could see it in both, and then in the Book of Boba as a flashback. I'm not sure about you guys, but sometimes I feel like what is made in animation should end in animation and not be put into live action. But once we got Ahsoka and Bo-Katan and so on, honestly, it was kind of even better for me in live action. It was different, but I enjoyed it in a different way, which was pretty awesome. Anyways, in the unseen arc of Bane and Boba, Bane would have joined Boba and told him he knew Jango, his father. Boba would wear the green armor for the first time, and their fate would end in a Western-style standoff. Whether Cad survives or not is not officially confirmed or denied, only there are fan theories out there, which point towards Cad dying, but some point towards him being alive too. That said, the ones that point to him dying make a lot of sense because the theories are, well, Bane must die because, well, Boba is still alive, because we see him in Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, and I highly doubt Boba would just let him walk as a free man. You know that large dent on Boba's helmet? Yeah, that's a shot from Cad Bane himself. Number 8. Jabba. Jabba the Hutt had a bit of a rowdy family member named Zero the Hutt who was being held captive by the Republic. The Hutt Council believed Zero was too dangerous to be left in prison, as he knew too much about the Hutt's operations and private details that could be leaked if questioned under pressure. So, naturally, Jabba, old buddy, old pal, hired Cad Bane to break Zero out and return him to the Hutt cartel. So Cad abducted R2 and 3PO, which gave him access to the map of the Senate building. Bane then put together a crew of other bounty hunters, and together they took the building with several senators hostage as collateral. Zero was sadly killed by his former lover and one of Jabba's top singers that we saw in Return of the Jedi, Cy Snooties. Number 9. His ship. Bane flew a smooth-looking ship, a modified Rogue-class starfighter called Xanadu Blood. Equipped with dual laser cannons and a shield generator, this ship was a gift from Papa Palps himself as a reward for stealing the holocron with the information about the Force-sensitive children. He used this ship quite a lot, to say the least. The ship flew very fast and it was stealthy, and not to mention it was controlled by his wrist gauntlets for ease. It also had a regular comm system, navigation system, but if he needed to control it by his wrist, he could do that. Kind of like the Green Goblin in Spider-Man. Number 10. The Wills. Do you guys remember the Wills? The Force-like god beings that Qui-Gon learned how to transfer his essence into the Force from, who then went on to teach Yoda, who then taught ObiWan, who then taught Anakin, so on. This was also what George was going to do for the first Star Wars film. He was going to have the Wills observing the events of the Skywalkers, maybe playing a hand here or there, fixing something, moving something, making something a little more difficult. Who knows? The Journal of the Wills is where they would have documented everything. And like DTs, as they recorded everything they saw, they end up actually mentioning Cad Bane. So he was big enough of a figure in the galaxy to be considered and discussed by these godlike beings. The following excerpt comes from a certain point of view, and it's a discussion between two Wills. So here we go. Will 1 says, "Next you're going to tell me that you weren't planning to mention Captain Rex, Ahsoka, Ventress, Cad Bane, Savage Opress, Jar Jar, and the Mandalorians." Will 2 says, "Well, I guess I could always go back and tell their stories later." Will 1 says, "Out of order?" So what I'm thinking, even just from that dialogue, and I hope, this is just a theory and a hope that I have, is that all of these backstories for these characters that were mentioned, and many more down the line, will be explained at some point in the future. Either in their own show, spin-off film, heck, even give me a comic, showing their early life and the end of it, but go into detail. I want to know the nitty-gritties. Or they could even put it in some other show like The Bad Batch, for example, which I think what they're doing, which never really made me think that we'd see Cad Bane in there, but it fits so well. And bonus fact number 11, Sabine Wren in Rebels had a painting of Cad Bane on her ship. Let me know what you guys thought of this breakdown, which facts about him are your favorite, not just from the video, but in general that I may have left out. Because if you comment, I will make another video and include that fact that you enjoyed so much, and explain it in great detail. Let me know what your Cad Bane theories are down below in the comments. I hope you enjoyed this top 10, and I will catch you in the next video. Until then, remember, the Force will be with you, always.